right, good afternoon. We'll call this meeting to order. It's 3 p.m., April 14th, and I'll please ask Councillor Bates to read the land acknowledgement.
The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many nations, Métis and Inuit, have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. We'll move on to 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Dunham?
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move into 3.1, the regular council meeting minutes for March 24th. When somebody's ready, please make a motion. Councillor Bates.
I'll move those minutes for adoption. Okay. I have one tiny, I guess it's a correction or just acknowledgement. It does say that in a motion that we supported the Water Commission on their drought. I'm sorry, that we give feedback. And I think the motion was to support them. And so I just point that out. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the minutes. All in favor? All right, carried. Thank you. And then 3.2, agenda and priorities for April the 7th. Please have someone make a motion to adopt those minutes as presented. Councillor Maceros.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move into 4.1 with CAO report with CEO Becker.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. All of Council, the report is there for your review. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions to the report or anything else in operations or administration.
Does anybody have any questions about anything? Okay, then I'll please have someone make a motion to accept as presented.
The council approves the Chief Administrative Officer report dated April 14th, 2025 as information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. And then we'll move into council action control. And just have somebody please make a motion that we accept this as presented as well. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yes, I would move that council accept the council resolution action control for information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. Now we'll move into 5.1 with Director Vickers and 2025 property tax bylaw.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So each year, council is required to authorize municipal tax rates that generate sufficient revenue to fund all the essential services as well as meet certain legislative requisitions. So the tax rates support the town's operating budget for municipal services, and then will also cover the amounts that the town is required to collect on behalf of other organizations. So these include the provincial education requisition, Parkland Foundation, and the designated industrial property requisition. So back on December 9th of 2024, Council did approve the 2025 operating budget, which included a tax requirement of about just over $13.5 million. Within that, it did have a 2.82% increase to the municipal mill rate. So we receive assessment estimates in November of each year, so we did use those estimates by Wild Rose Assessment Services. During budget deliberations, we presented these assessment estimates to council and used them to calculate the total levy, with the municipal portion being budgeted at $10,372,000. In February of this year, the town did receive the finalized property assessment figures from our assessors. And as outlined in the attached property tax estimate, and shown below, the total assessed value for the town of Innisfail increased by just over $100 million compared to 2024. This represents an overall assessment growth of 8.13%. So this growth includes both lots of new development that happened within the community last year, as well as market value increases, reflecting a combination of ongoing investment in the community and rising property values. So the increase of assessment with the 2.82% tax increase, we're seeing a tax amount of $10,537,000, which is an increase of $164,000 over our budgeted amount last fall. So as a result of the assessment increase, administration is recommending to reduce the municipal tax rate increase from 2.82 down to 1.4. This reduction would bring the municipal tax levy to $10,392,000. This is more in line with our originally approved amount of $10,372,000, ensuring that we still have all the finances to meet our budget targets without placing any further undue burden on taxpayers. As previously discussed with Council, the education property tax requisition that was set by the province has increased this year. For Innisfil, it's a 12% increase from the previous year, resulting in an additional $380,000 that the town will have to collect and remit to the province. The town has no control over this portion of the tax bill, but it will affect the total amount property owners see. So by reducing this municipal rate, the town aims to help offset the impact of the education tax increase and ease the overall tax burden on residents and businesses. We would like to just point out that administration does recognize that the town's 10-year capital budget continues to face a funding shortfall. And furthermore, there are two major capital projects currently under consideration that could warrant the allocation of this additional tax revenue. Despite these long-term funding pressures, we are still recommending the reduced municipal tax rate increase to 1.4, taking into account the 2024 surplus, as well as the notable increases in property assessed values, as well as the provincially mandated education mill rate. Thanks to the town's robust assessment growth, we are in our position to maintain our budget commitments while reducing the municipal tax rate increase. This approach supports the town's ongoing commitment to fiscal responsibility and transparency, while also recognizing the need to balance operational requirements with economic realities facing our community. So we do have our proposed mill rates set below you. This is at the 1.4% now for 2024. And we do, again, collect requisitions on behalf of Parkland Foundation and the province of Alberta, and those organizations set their own mill rates, so we're just here to put them into the bylaw. Once Bylaw 1735 has been passed, the 2025 assessment and taxation notices will be sent out no later than April 23rd, so that's, I believe, next Wednesday. That will give the residents the mandatory 67 days to file an appeal, and that way their appeal deadline is on the due date. So we don't have situations where people pay their taxes, they file appeal, and now we're refunding a portion of the taxes. So taxes must be paid without penalty on or before the June 30th deadline, and these are the current penalty dates now. We still are undergoing a tax bylaw review, and that will undertake through the summer, and we'll come to you with more further information at that. So there's just a list of all the different sets of revenue being generated through the bylaw. So we do see our residential, non-residential machinery and equipment. Those are our municipal dollars. Alberta School Fund and Separate School Fund is going to the school. We have our Parkland Foundation and our designated industrial properties, or DIP, if you've heard people refer to that. And again, so administration will mail out these tax notices by April 23rd, and we'll take additional notification via our current communication tools. So we'll start pretty heavy in the town voice and in the paper. We are going to get the large sign on Main Street again this year, just like we had last year. And I'll take any questions anyone may have.
Right, thank you. Director Vickers, could I please have someone make the first motion, and then we can open it up for discussion? Councillor Wing.
Excuse me, thank you, Mayor Barclay. I would move that council accept and give number 1735, 2025 property tax bylaw first reading.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Through to Director Vickers, when I opened this up on Saturday, needless to say, it was a very pleasant surprise. And I know that our residents will be I would hope very happy with the reduction of 1.4%. It's also great to see how much the growth, not only in property values, but in our residential and commercial growth has been over this past year. And I think it's also great that our level of services haven't been compromised or dropped to accommodate that lesser amount. And I look forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of years. I think Innisfil's on a really good trajectory, and I think there's just kind of shows that a little bit more. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a little bit of a different take, I guess. I don't know if anybody's going to be thrilled when we see an almost 10% property tax increase, basically, is what it is. And I realize a big part of it's the assessment. My question, Director Vickers, is we have a $120,000 line item in the budget for carbon tax, which we no longer have to pay come April 1st. So that would be, let's say, a $90,000 reduction in our budget for 2025. We also have in a couple of items ahead of here a $700,000 surplus. And I guess both sides of this coin, I understand where we're at and the funding challenges that we have in front of us. I also understand the other side of it when people are getting a fairly significant increase, and it is almost 10%. And I also look at the education property taxes, which is not our issue, but the non-residential education property taxes are making up 42% of the non-residential tax bill now. Like, it's massive, right? Like, it's a third for residential, but over 40% for non-residential. So I'm trying to weigh these two things, knowing all the things that we have in front of us that we have to fund, but on the other hand, thinking about some residents, not all, some that are already so squeezed. We've seen car insurance go up. We've seen property insurance go up upwards of 18%. And so I just wonder how much we can put on people's shoulders. So I'm wondering if there could be an adjustment with the carbon tax, or is that something we haven't really considered? Okay. Councillor Bates.
Yes, I agree. I'm glad you brought it up, because I was gonna. I don't know that it needs to be big, but I think we should take, and I'm asking, I guess, the question through to administration. The 1.4 still has a small margin in it, which it's not like we're skinning it right to the bone, the reduction as compared to the assessment increase. So I'd like to see some component in there for the carbon tax personally. I realize we'll never have enough money, and we do have all these big things coming, but yeah, we definitely have a big chunk of carbon tax that now it looks like 3/4 of the year we won't have. So, and that's budgeted, so I think we should be. And back to the other good thing is you manage the money so well that we have the surpluses usually. So I'd like to see a component. I'm not going to sit here and pick how much it should be, but.
Councillor Heiston.
Your Worship, just listening to the dialogue here. So, we're in a fortunate situation right now. How do you see it, Mayor Barclay? Do we address these right now, or we're asking that we go back to administration to tweak it? Or are we doing it as we speak, right?
I think we should have a discussion about it and see what everybody wants to do. And I guess, like I said, it's difficult, right? Because we do have all these funding issues, but, at some point it's a big assessment this year that we're not used to, I guess, is what I'm kind of grappling with. And we're kind of, aghast at where we were seeing some communities with a 10% tax increase. Well, that's kind of where we're at right now. But I'm wondering, Director Vickers, like, if you reduce the carbon tax off there and even took another little portion from the surplus.
We can do just about anything.
Yeah,
you'd
I
like,
know.
right?
I'm trying to think in my mind, like 1% is what, 100,000, or is it more than that?
Approximately 100,000 is 1%. What's the number that you would want to target right now?
I'll defer to Councillor Bates.
So what do we think we're going to save for carbon tax? And then let's put a tiny safety factor on that for us. That would be where my head would be.
Okay, so I'd have to go have a look and run an analysis on that account and see where we're sitting at now versus how, where we're going to end up for sure.
But imagine it would be fairly safe to say if we're at 120 for a budget item, then, and we've gone through January, February, March.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah, 90,000 would be the easiest
approximately. right?
approximate number,
Give
yeah.
or take.
I'm not sure I would recommend to just do that unilaterally without waiting to see how many invoices are coming in with any further carbon tax costs on there. We don't have all of our invoices in yet for the first quarter.
No, but it'd still be allocated to the first quarter though, right? Like it's,
It would be allocated to the first quarter.
you've put a budget line in for 120, then it's not going to be 120. Would you rather to bring that back to us, or do we have to do this today?
The tax bylaw needs to be
Done
passed today,
Yeah,
so
okay.
I would need to go for a few minutes and just run some quick calculations.
Okay, Councillor Bates?
I could suggest a number of 80 that I think probably would be safe, but that's just a suggestion if we don't.
Your worship, I would agree with Councillor Bates on the 80. As to deferring this decision until we do need the data before us, right? So, or you just wanted to call it as is, your worship?
Well, I think that, I guess where I'm going is, what is the mill rate going to be? Are we increasing by 1.4? Are we leaving it at 0 and letting the assessment growth look after that? Is that a bad thing to do in your eyes, Director Vickers? And
So, I guess, so we are doing a 1.4 tax increase to our mill rate, right? So the dollars that we need to increase 1.4%. So if we need to lower that, then we need to pull money in from somewhere else or cut some type of program.
but I guess we're pulling money from the carbon tax, and we can pull money from $700,000 in surplus to make up 1.4%, I guess is what I'm saying.
So is that, you just want to bring it down to a 0?
Well, I don't know. I'm asking my council colleagues. Councillor Bates?
I personally don't need to, I'm not aiming to see it 0, but I also would like to see the component for the carbon tax, which we know we're not going to spend. So
Do you want to leave it at the carbon tax?
if you
then?
used 80, it would be about 0.8.
0.8, yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Do you want to leave it at the carbon tax then?
Yeah, and
Because we do
yeah,
have a lot of
and
things.
so you'd have a very tiny tax increase.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's
at
still,
least we wouldn't be, I mean, we get the assessment. It's not like it goes somewhere else.
Right.
yeah,
So that's our tax increase mostly, and then we'd have a fraction on the mill rate.
yeah. Okay, I'm good with that. Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, I'm good with the 0.8.
I would support that as well.
Okay, Councillor Dunham?
I'm good, thanks.
Councillor Sherritt?
No, actually.
Okay.
I guess I'm just reflecting back over the last couple of years as we've sat here and we've discussed during the budget. And we look at the years that there was 0, and we talk about the position that we've put ourselves in. And I feel that we're just doing that again, that we're not looking for enough down the road. And it's not like any of us are immune to what's happening with the increases. And I know we do not know what's going to be happening with tariffs, et cetera. But the difference between 0.8 and 1.4 to me isn't enough to justify going back and not having that money. And I just, for me, I'm really basing this on what we've all said around this table over the last couple of years, that, you know, we need to build in more. We're going to be in trouble in a few years if we don't have more reserves. And this isn't going to, you know, completely solve that situation, but it's a step forward to that, and I feel a step in the right direction. So obviously I'm not apparently aligned with everyone else at this point in time, but this is just where I'm sitting, and I don't want to see us or the next council or whomever down the road going, I wish they had done more. I wish we had really had the foresight to make sure that we had that resiliency built in and the reserves built in.
Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, I thank Councillor Dunham for his comments, and I think the tough spot that we're all in is we're trying to balance as much as we can and not ensure that those businesses are and our citizens aren't taking too much of a hit. But underfunded, communities like ours have been taking this hit for quite some time, and it's tough for us to this is how I see it, is it's all a balancing act and making sure that we're educating our public as to why we're asking for these increases, as well as the lack of funding out there currently. And that's how I'm looking at this right now with the 0.8. I look at it as being as fair as we can. And we have said that we need to ask for more. We should have been building our reserves up, but it's tough and especially right now when people are struggling and there's so many unknowns with the economy. And you can throw the tariffs in there, which changes day to day, which we don't even have a handle on that thing as is. But I'm good with the 0.8, but I do respect what your comments are, Councillor Dunham.
Yep, for sure. Councillor Dunham, Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. My mind went exactly the same place that Councillor Dunham's mind went. We've had some tough discussions over the last couple of years and have reflected on some of the decisions that previous councils have made. And I think in some ways this is, this could be a good example of an opportunity for us. I do appreciate the discussion about, how are we going to make things better for our residents. I just have sort of a question that I know that there's no answer to, but it would be nice if there was some way of calculating the tax relief that the provincial government is providing to Albertans and measuring that against what the municipalities are asking our residents to pay, which I know there's no formula or calculation for that.
Mayor Barclay, through to Councillor Maceros, I'm not sure how much tax relief they give.
Well, it was announced in the budget this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that, okay. It was, it's like average $750 per person. So it was on the first, I think, 75,000, but the first 30-something is exempt. So there's like $35,000 of taxes that have been reduced from 10 to 8%. Yes.
And then I did just have one question, and it's just sort of maybe outside of what we're talking about, but I wondered what warrants a successful appeal?
So for your property tax?
Yeah.
So you get your tax notice, you can appeal just about anything that's on your notice. If something is incorrectly, like you have an address wrong or your name's wrong, you can appeal that. But typically, most people will just appeal their assessment value. So when you come in to chat with our assessors, you have to have kind of some valid reasons as why you think your property is overassessed or underassessed. And then they'll provide you with the reasons, right? If you can say, look, the house next door to me sold for $50,000 lower than my assessment, and that's why I want to base it on. And then likely that would happen, right? But that won't become an appeal. That's just a conversation with the assessors, and normally he does give some relief during those times. It's only when they can't come to some kind of understanding, then they go through a formal appeal.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I can remember before I got on council calling the assessor once because I thought it was pretty high. And quite simply, they asked me, would you sell your house for what we've assessed it for? And
You said no.
I wouldn't. And so then they asked if they were close or within 5-10%. And anyway, we jointly agreed that their assessment was just fine. So people have that option, and they will, without you appealing it, they'll discuss it with you.
Yes, our assessor is very busy once we send the notices out, yes.
And back to the other discussion, it's not the $60,000 difference between 1.4 and 0.8. To me, it's the principle that we are gaining the other tax money through assessment. It's not like we're giving it up. We're gaining a lot of tax money, and that 60 is, it's almost nothing on 1.3 million or 10.3 million. But it is the fact that we no longer have to pay the carbon tax. I wish we could get every business in Canada to abide by those principles. We'd all be seeing some price reductions right now. And I'm not talking to gas stations. I mean, that was very obvious, but anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I would like, I'm sorry, Councillor Bing.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, I'd just like to add, we've been grappling over the last 4 budgets. Actually, one of the key pieces has been the ever-increasing amount of carbon tax every year, and the forecast for the next for the next foreseeable future was every year that carbon tax amount was going to go up. So, and yes, I mean, it's lovely to have a surplus at the end of the year. I don't like to see us budget for a surplus, and I know that we had great investment returns last year, and so that's a big part of that surplus. But I just think if we're actually removing something as significant as the carbon tax from our budget, that I think it's reasonable, and I think it's the correct thing to do from that fiduciary responsibility perspective.
Thank you, and I agree with that. I think, you know, if we saw the budget today, it wouldn't have the carbon tax in it. So that reduces the need to cover it. So I would like to see us reduce by, if you want to have a little bit of a cushion in there, great, like down to, what did you say? It was 120, so I think you said 80, so 90 would have, you know, would be maybe 3/4 of the year, but let's reduce it down to 80 and take that out. C.O. Becker?
Let's have a point, I believe, of clarity. In reading where the cursor is, that paragraph, I know there's a reference that we have 10% equation, the budget's gone up 10%, but actually the assessment growth has gone up 100,000, which is equal to 1%. So if we use the word it's gone up 10%, it's actually only 1% real dollars. So $100,000 is roughly 1%. So just caution council on using that, we've gone up 10%. It's really just 1% for what I read in this report, and the director would have to clarify, but that one report states that, am I on the right page? Oh, sorry, above, so 8.13 equals $100,000. So I just want to make sure we're using that proper language. We have not grown 10%. Yeah, and then obviously, just for clarity too, the 80,000 would show up on surplus next year likely, but it's up to council as your discussion. But I just want to make it clear that 10%, it's only 1% growth in budgetary dollars.
Yeah, I guess, sorry, what I was looking at was more this sheet, and I'm looking at the increases down the side that are from 7 to over 10 and a half. And that includes the property or the education tax too. But I think if we saw this budget in November and we knew the carbon tax was going to be cut at the end of March, then that line item would have been reduced by 90,000 approximately. So I feel we should take the 80 off and adjust taxes accordingly to make that adjustment. Leave the surplus as is, a couple of items from now.
So that would be a 0.6% increase. So from a 1.4, removing 80,000 off the cuff, it's a 0.8%, bring it down to 0.6%. I do have those mill rates in front of me if we'd like to continue with the mill rates at the 0.6% increase.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
I'm good with what I just heard, but I was going to go back on math with the other one, that we had a $164,000 increase in the assessed value over what we were budgeting, which that did to me equate to approximately the move that was being suggested. But I'm good with what I just heard of the 0.6.
Okay.
So so the residential tax rate, we'll have to update the bylaw, so it'll have to be approved as amended. The motions will have to say as amended.
Okay.
So the residential tax rate will be 7.2501.
Okay.
And the non-residential will be 8.9460.
9460, okay.
So that generates $10,309,000 in tax revenue, and if we add in the $80,000 from the carbon tax to offset, that brings us to $10,389,000, and I was asking for $10,391,000, so we're only about 3,000. So we'll be.
You're good.
We are good with
Okay,
those
as long
numbers.
as you're good.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, I guess Councillor Wing made the first motion, so she should amend that motion with these numbers in it, or how would you like to do this?
Just as amended, Mayor Barclay would be appropriate.
Okay.
And only for the first reading, not for the, if you go into the
Yeah,
second.
right, yeah. Okay, carry on, Councillor Wing.
Yes, so I would amend the first reading motion and in accordance with the most recent numbers that Director Vickers has presented.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Bates?
I just have a question. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So is the proposed tax increase 0.6%?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's our mill rate increase is 0.6%. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Correct. Thank
All right, all in favor? Okay, anybody opposed? No? Okay, somebody please give second reading. Councillor Bates?
Oh, I need that. I need the script. There it is.
There it is.
The council
Just put it
accepts and gives 1735-2025 property tax bylaw reading as amended, second reading.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, carried, and then we'll give consideration to third reading. We don't need it amended.
Mayor Barclay, I move the council gives consideration for 1735-2025 property tax bylaw third reading.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous, and then we'll give third and final reading, please. Councillor Maceros.
I move that council accepts and gives 1735-2025 property tax bylaw third and final reading.
Okay. Any last comments? All in favor? Carried. That was easy. Okay, we'll move on to 5.2 with Director Vickers.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So this is for a tax installment payment plan bylaw. So the town of Innisfil has been successfully operating a tax installment payment plan, or a TIP program, for several years, providing residents with a convenient and flexible way of their monthly tax payments. This program has been proven beneficial to both taxpayers and the municipalities, supporting household budgeting while ensuring a steady and predictable flow of revenue throughout the year. To support the continued success of this program and ensure alignment with provincial legislation, this proposed bylaw is being brought forward under the authority of Section 340, Sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act, which permits the municipality to authorize tax installment payments by bylaw. While the TIP program has been operating effectively, formalizing it through bylaw reinforces the town commitments to good governance, transparency, and legislative compliance. So the bylaw attached clearly outlines eligibility requirements, the application process, payment structure, and provisions for missed payments or voluntary withdrawal. It also delegates administrative authority to the CAO to oversee and manage the program effectively. With this bylaw in place, the town will continue delivering a well-established and valued service, backed by the appropriate legislative framework. So just some of the items inside the bylaw. So eligibility, you do have to not have any tax arrears at the time of application. So when you come with application, you do have to pay up whatever you have owing. You can't be paying your taxes through a mortgage company, and you have to agree to pay them through a normal bank, right? So we have to deduct it from your bank. It can't come from a credit card or things like that. So the town must complete and submit a form to the town office at least 2 days before the tax notice due date. So that would be June 28th of this year. So the form must include the property details and as well as their banking information. We only withdraw payments on the 15th of the month. So this is kind of just identifying that. And the annual tax levy will be divided into 12 equal installments, with an adjustment in May. After we send out the tax notices, we do an adjustment because we want to make sure everyone is down to just about 0 pennies, maybe rounding, right? So for missed payments and the program removal, so after, if someone misses one payment, we normally just send them a letter just saying, hey, we think you forgot. After 2 consecutive missed payments, we do remove them from the program. And any outstanding balance due now becomes taxable, or not taxable, sorry. They could receive any applicable penalties under the rates and fees bylaw. So within this program, no one pays any penalties through this program, right? So, but once you get kicked off or you withdraw, now you're subject to penalties like everyone else. And they can withdraw from the program. They do have to provide 10 working days before the next scheduled payment. So no new financial implications will be anticipated, as we are already completing this program as it is. We do have the forms to apply and withdraw are already on our website. I just put the forms section there. We do have quite a large brunt of people. About 1/3 of our people are on this program, but we will continue to advertise, just, put it out every quarter, twice a year, just as a reminder to people that this program is available for them to access. So I'll take any questions anyone may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I please have someone give first reading for this bylaw? Councillor Hystad?
Your worship, I move that council accepts and gives number 1736-2025 tax installment payment plan bylaw first reading.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No, all in favor? Carried. And second reading, please. Councillor Bates?
I'll move that council accepts and gives 1736-2025 tax installment payment plan bylaw second reading.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Carried. And consideration for third reading, Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I'll move that council gives consideration for 1736-2025 tax installment payment plan bylaw third reading.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. And then third and final, Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barclay, I move the council accepts and gives 1736-2025 tax installment payment plan bylaw third and final reading.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. All right, we'll move on to 5.3 with Director Vickers on the surplus.
All right, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we have here the fourth quarter financials, the allocation of the 2024 surplus, and then some following budget adjustments to account for the surplus allocation. So each year, administration presents quarterly financials for council to review and approve. So the financials currently being presented are for the fourth quarter of 2024. So that is January 1st to December 31st, all in total. We have reviewed all the financial information being presented. The budget was approved on December 11th of 2023, and we do believe this to be a true representation of the state of the financials as of December 31st, 2024. So first we'll get into the revenue and the expenses of how we kind of generated our surplus this year. So the final financials of 24 show a total revenue of $30,225,000. This does represent a $1,987,000 revenue over what our approved budget was. So some of these factors, the big one was our land sales. So land sale revenue was increased by just over $1 million due to increased lot home sales. We actually sold all of our lots last year that we had available. We do have 3 final lots that sold last year, but they're closing in 25. So that money actually is going to come into the 2025 budget. So we have other revenue, and it was also increased by $509,000. That's where interest revenue sits. So it was increased by $343,000. Permit application fees were increased by $43,000. That likely is indicative of the development activity that we saw throughout the year as well. The Fortis franchise fee increased by $98,000. Donation revenue increased by $42,000. We saw increased admission and membership fees in just over $24,000, and we again received the double MSI operating payment, or I guess it probably should be called LGFF payment now, of $65,000. For our expenses, we are seeing a final financials for the expenses of $29,521,000. This actually is representing an increase of $1,284,000 over the approved budget. The brunt of that is through the land sales and the transfer to the operating budget and transfer to the reserve under that. But we did see total contracted and general services did come under budget by $570,000. The big one is contracted services was under budget by $396,000, as well as repairs and maintenance were under budget by $68,000. We were over budget for salaries and benefits, sitting at 104%. So we're over budget by $282,000, and that kind of comes from a couple areas. One of them was increased call volume for the fire department, led to significantly higher firefighter wages, which we did rectify in the 2025 budget. We actually increased those salaries by $100,000 for this year. As well, specifically, we did hire a third community peace officer, which didn't come fully into budget until 25. So we had hired that person, and things like that. RCMP costs came under budget by $137,000 this year. That is likely part and parcel to, we don't follow the same year as them. So they go from April 1st to March 31st, and we go from January to December. So sometimes our yearly numbers don't always match up correctly. Materials, goods, and supplies and utilities came in over budget by $79,000. This is primarily made up of electrical utilities. Again, this was also an area that we increased by $75,000 in the 2025 budget. So transfer payments were increased by $1,337,000. So this is primarily due to the capital budget investment from the sale of the homes in Hazelwood. So part of that, we had to transfer more to the capital budget to build out the fully finished homes. And the balance of that department went into the land reserve, which was a significant transfer this year. So that is how we get our surplus. So we have 1.987 increases in revenue and 1.284 in expenses to balance out from $703,000. So this is where administration is recommending the surplus be allocated. So number one, these are items that came from, they were from budget 24 that we had to carry over into budget 25. So they're already allocated as funds into budget 25. So we're going to put that into the contingency reserve and then bring it back out of that reserve for those items. One item, sidewalk program, 2 planned sidewalk projects were delayed in 2024 and did not move forward as scheduled. So we will be reinitiating it in 2025 as part of our ongoing commitment to pedestrian safety and accessibility improvements. So that's sitting at $25,000. Also, our tree planting program was postponed from 2024 and will now be delivered in 25 with updated planning to enhance urban canopy goals and environmental sustainability. That's sitting at $10,000. We do have a request here that's new. It wasn't a carryover from last year, but we are looking to replace some fire gear. So on March 1st of 2025, Innisfell Fire responded to a fully involved Quonset fire in our Red Deer County contracted area as mutual aid was required. Crews successfully prevented spread to the nearby residents. But during that response, a firefighter's bunker gear was severely damaged from radiant heat exposure. This gear was beyond the NFPA 1851 recommended 10-year service life and has been retained temporarily for laundering backup. Following that review, 6 spare sets of gear have been identified to be past that NFPA standard and pose a similar risk. We annually only budget for 5 sets per year, with 3 have already been purchased to date in 2025. So we are looking for an additional $15,000 to replace the remaining 4 aging sets. And that would result in a budgeting shortfall without adding this additional funding. Another new request is the fire department office renovation. So during the 2025 budget discussions, funding for the proposed additional meeting space and office on the 2nd floor of the Fire and Protective Services building was removed. So the estimated cost of construction is $7,500 with an additional $3,000 required for furnishing the space. We'll get a new, we'll have to get a new desk and things like that. At this time, no funds are available within the existing building maintenance budget to proceed with this renovation. The proposed additional office is intended for use by the new fire chief, while the meeting space would support administrative functions, community engagement, and also serve as a breakout area for our emergency operations center during activations. With the balance of that going to the facility reserve of $512,000. So that's where the pool is going to be funded out of, is the facility reserve. So there's 2 additional carryover projects. However, these projects originated from the utilities department. The surplus funds from the completed work have already been transferred to the facility or utility reserve. So the remaining components of these projects will be fully funded from this reserve and not from the surplus. So the renovation at Reservoir 1 involves converting the facility into cold storage, was not initiated in 2024, and has been rescheduled to 25 to better align with operational priorities and available resources. That cost is $32,000, as well as a safety camera review. So originally scoped under the water budget, this project has since been expanded to include additional locations and broader safety objectives. The review will now be implemented as part of the 2025 budget with a more comprehensive approach. So that's $25,000. So our 2024 reserves have an end balance of $16,856,000. Funds taken from reserves to fund projects in 24 was $2,794,000, and transfers to reserves were $3,609,000. So those are our current carryover projects, as well as all the projects that were completed in 2024. And then we do have some budget adjustments prepared based on those asks that we have. So each of these accounts will need to have their budgets adjusted based on those asks, and there will be no effect on our contingency because it will remain at 0. Next council meeting, we will have our 2024 audited financial statements before you for your approval, as well as our auditors will be here as well. And once those are approved, a copy will be released onto our website for review. So I will take any questions anyone may have.
Okay, thank you, Director Vickers. We'll have somebody please make the first motion. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I move that council accept the 2024 fourth quarter financials as presented.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I have questions. Just a few. And can you give us the Coles version again, Director Vickers, on the reserve? So just the three of them. So general capital, infrastructure capital, and then utility capital, I assume, is water, wastewater.
Yes, let me just get to the right
Okay.
sheet here.
So general capital is everything else, maybe?
Yes, so contingency is kind of mid-year pickups. We don't know where to pull the money from. An over budget, we can pull it from that. General capital is kind of open for council, right? They're open for us. There's really no restrictions on what can be used for
Okay.
it. Infrastructure, capital maintenance, and repair really does have to go to invest into our infrastructure. So whether it's a park or a road or a pool, it can all go to that. Utility capital replacement, maintenance and repair. So that is specifically for utility infrastructure. So all of the transfers to reserves from the storm, water, wastewater, as well as the garbage flow into this reserve, and that funds those typical projects. Just to maintain that it's not funded by taxpayer dollars, and it is users of the utility that actually pay for that. We have facility capital replacement. So this is, we're putting money in there to aim for upgrades to the facility. This is here sitting for the pool project right now. And any kind of, if we were planning for the arena and we're starting to save for large dollars for a new big project, that would go in here. Capital fleet replacement goes to fund all of the fleet outside of utility. So fire, town office, any roads, parks, all that equipment all comes out of there. And the utility capital fleet is just for utility equipment. Now we move into the restricted reserves. So land acquisition and servicing really is to go to things just to deal with land. So, but that could be paying for the roads to be developed, right? Or doing the subdivision, that would pay for all of that. Cemetery goes to the cemetery, so if we need to buy another columbarium or if we're ready to open up a new section in the cemetery, we'll pull the funds from there. In lieu of municipal reserve is where in areas where we're doing a subdivision and there's not enough green space or land that they're giving to us, then they give us money in lieu of that. And then we spend that money on certain things. Offsite levies is kind of the similar thing. When we're doing some developments, developers normally have to pay a portion to fund certain projects that are currently in our offsite levies bylaw. Joint use center, so that reserve is specifically for things at the school. So we have a joint use agreement with Chinook's Edge, and we do book the school, and like for bookings, right? If someone has a volleyball tournament, things like that. And we take that money and we save that money and put it in a reserve. So we don't take that money and put it into our bank account, we put it in a special bank account, and then when the school comes and they say they want to buy a new score clock or they need volleyballs or new nets, then we can buy that and help facilitate that with those dollars. And then the RCMP is there just to help pay for the back pay funding of the RCMP. I don't know if you remember, we did send something in February that we did pay the large portion of the RCMP back pay, so an updated version of this, because this is as of the end of December, will not have the brunt of that money in RCMP either. Is that what you were looking for, Mayor Barclay?
Yeah, no, that's lots, thanks. It was more so just 2 or 3 of them. And then my other question, like on water sewer, for example, like the actuals match the actual expenses. So how does that
So,
exactly?
yes, so Mayor Barclay, for all of the utility departments, so storm, water, wastewater, and garbage, and when I'm done everything else, I look at those departments, and whatever that number is at the bottom, I take that number and transfer it to reserve, so that they do balance out to zero. If we say, you got 3.5 million in revenue,
Yeah.
but we only have 3.3 million in expenses, now I'm upping it to 3.5, because I'm taking that transfer to reserve and
Okay.
putting it into reserves.
So you've done that already with the.
I've done
income
that already,
statement.
yes.
Okay. Okay, was there reserves in the wastewater? Do you
There
know
was,
off
we
the top of my
transferred
head?
reserves to the wastewater this year, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, it was the first year that
Yeah.
we've been able to pull from, or put to reserves rather than pull from reserves every year, so it's been
No,
quite, it
that's
was
good.
quite nice.
No, it's a pretty dry year too, so. Okay, anybody have any questions? No? Okay, so we have a motion, all in favor? Carried, and I'll have somebody please make the second motion. Councillor Bates?
I'll move that council approves the allocation of the 2024 surplus as follows. 190,500 to the operating reserve and 512,989 to the facility reserve.
Right, thank you. Any questions about that? Councillor Bates?
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, I think it's nice to be in that position that we don't even have to prioritize the ones that we're allocating, because you could do that and still have, but yeah, it's just nice to be in that position. So you have that buffer, let's call it, but I think we're in great shape there.
Yeah, and 700,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's only, what, 2 point blah, blah, something percent on the budget, 2.3%, so it's not a lot, but there's never a shortage of where we can put it. So, okay, so we have a motion, second motion, all in favor? Carried, and then the third motion, Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barclay, I move that council approves the recommended budget adjustments.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried, thanks. Okay. And we'll move on to 6.1 with Director Jenkins.
All right, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we're looking to present the lot draw and tender results for the Napoleon Lake South Land Development Area for council consideration and approval for project advancement. So going back to April 1st, the Municipal Planning Commission conditionally approved the subdivision applications. The tender for the infrastructure installation closed on April 8th, and the lot draw was held on April 10th. So 5 tender submissions were received. These tender values do not include GST or contingency. I think you're on the wrong RFD, Juanita. I was like, what? There we go. So you can see the 5 bid prices. So the low bid is about $100,000 under the projection for the items included in the tender. So the tender evaluation is in progress, and a motion to award the contract will be presented at a future meeting. Work on site is anticipated to commence mid-May and be completed in mid-September. Landscaping, trail construction, and paving, as well as any required upgrades to Highway 54 will be completed in 2026 and are not reflected in the tender amount. So an original project budget of $4.5 million was approved in the 2025 capital budget. Current total project costs are estimated to be in that $4.8 million. However, this total includes the additional upgrades required to Highway 54, which we're still working through what those are going to be and what the requirements are, as well as contingency. So then on April 10th, we held the lot draw. So we had, of the 11 R1B lots available, 3 of those lots were selected. Of the 15 R2 detached lots available, 2 were selected. Of the 10 duplex lots, 4 were selected, and 7 of the 26 townhouse lots were selected. In addition, we have the letter of intent in place for the 0.94 acres of direct control, with a purchase price of $235,000 intended for the apartment building development.
So the sales through the lot draw represent approximately 25% of the projected revenue being secured for the project and 27% of the properties available. Administration does feel the lot draw results combined with general interest provides sufficient certainty to continue to move forward with the project. Again, the revenue and expense projections indicate that the project can be self-funded with cash flow from the land acquisition reserve to cover the initial development. And as total costs continue to be refined with the tender bids, and we are currently sitting in a revenue, projecting being in a revenue positive position for the development. So again, basically looking for council to approve the project, to continue with lot sales, and then we would be coming back to council for that final contract award for the infrastructure installation.
Okay, thank you, Director Jenkins, and congratulations on, I think, a pretty successful time. I know you put so much work into this, so I'll just have somebody please make the recommended motion. Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I move that council approves the Napoleon Lake Development Project, continue lot sales, and provide the tender evaluation summary and award recommendation at the April 28th regular council meeting.
Right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Hustad.
Your worship, I just got one question on the trail. I know we did the trail on 42nd Street. Does that trail continue on in any other areas? That's the only weird question that I have.
Yes, so Juanita, if you want to go to the map that's in there. So the trail component for this is essentially the berm trail, so it'll run north-south there between Highway 54 and the land development. That's the trail, so it'll connect from that sort of just before the crosswalk, running north, connecting in to the Napoleon Lake Trail.
Will that be on top of the berm or on the side?
It will be on top of the
On top,
berm.
okay. No, that's it. I totally like that idea. I've seen it in Edmonton and it works well. And good work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so all in favor of the motion? Okay, carried. And then we'll move on to 6.2 with Director Jenkins and the Aquatic Center modernization.
Okay, so we're looking to present the Aquatic Center modernization project scope and budget for approval. So just in terms of timeline where we're at with the project, so we're looking again for a council decision today to move ahead. There will then be a series of borrowing bylaws coming through in May with construction starting in July. And it's a proposed 9-month facility closure at this time. Again, we will still be determining the full, what that financial scope looks like in terms of borrowing based on grants and some of the timing around that. So in terms of project scope, Juanita, if you want to go to the PowerPoint, that's probably the easiest. So again, looking for the primary project objectives being to extend the facility lifespan, improved accessibility, functionality, and operational efficiency, and providing that value for money for citizens. So the project scope consists of 3 main components: the building envelope and exterior, the interior mechanical and electrical upgrades, and then the interior finishing changes, so the whirlpool replacement, steam room, change rooms, as well as the office and lobby reconfiguration. So in terms of the building envelope and exterior, so moving towards a high-performance building envelope, replacing all windows, doors, and skylights, steel reinforcement and new roofing, as well as full exterior cladding replacement, and insulation. We are looking, so we had some conversation with council previously about the upgrade from sort of base building code envelope upgrades to the triple pane, the R50 roof, those amounts. with the indication that it was about a 5 to 10% savings moving up to those amounts. So based on year-to-date consumption for the pool, just on energy costs, not delivery charges or taxes, we've paid just over $12,000 in natural gas. So a 5 to 10% savings, we could be looking in that $25,000 to $5,000 annually on those energy savings. I won't mention how much the delivery charges increase that, just and then, so with the exterior, we will be doing sort of base level exterior upgrades. So that's standard colors and profiles for that exterior tin. You want to just stay on that picture for a second, Juanita? So there are, we'll come back to council with some of those colors and those options as we go through. There is a fair amount of option just in the profiles of the material that we can still create. Something quite interesting. I was in Lacombe on the weekend and saw a building that has similar finishing, and I think it still will look really great. Mechanical and electrical, so essentially full replacement of the mechanical and HVAC systems in the facility, as well as all of the emergency and LED lighting, as well as the filtration systems related to both the pool and the hot tub. Okay. And then the interior reconfigurations and finishings, so moving towards barrier-free universal change rooms, including new flooring, fixtures, partitions, and lockers, reconfiguring the office, creating a proper staff room and first aid room, all the flooring throughout the entire facility, so the deck tile, the drainage tracks, and that front lobby, and then replacement of the curtain wall between the lobby and the viewing area, and the railing around the viewing area. We'll also be replacing the steam room in its entirety, so full tile replacement, the steam generator unit, ventilation, and the access door and entry. For the hot tub, we'll be replacing with a new stainless steel rectangular tub with comparable capacity to the existing, as well as all of the piping from the hot tub back to the mechanical room. So this brings us to a base cost for the project of just over $2.2 million, with the included owner and shared risk components of the project, looking at a total project value of $14.9 million. Those risk costs are essentially, those are the contingency numbers. That's another word for that. On the next slide, the owner risk is essentially things that the contractors don't have a lot of control over. So of that 1.2 million of owner risk, I believe it's about 650,000 of that is currently identified as tariff risk. So still working through what that's going to look like. The team has been great at trying to understand where things are coming from, and again, it's still kind of up in the air as to where those will apply. The balance being those unknowns that just go along with a renovation in terms of when they start jackhammering out the whirlpool, what they find underneath, those types of things. Where the shared team risks are more associated with project delays or things that the contractors themselves have a level of control over in terms of how efficiently they are operating. So, I guess in terms of next steps, yes, today's the big day for the Aquatic Center. We'll then be continuing to work with the team through that detailed design, and they can get started on procurement with the July 7th facility closure date and a 9-month closure, which puts us to April of 2026. So, looking back at the motion, so looking for council to approve that project budget to be funded from a combination of the facility reserve, LGFF, and debenture. The project to be completed by Chandos Construction and Group 2 Architecture.
Thanks, Director Jenkins. Question, is that,
What's that, sorry?
the 12 million seems to be less than what maybe we thought?
That's the base
Okay,
price, yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought we were around 14 or 15 with the other things like the pool deck and the front area being changed with staff room and everything.
That's with all of the optional items that we've discussed with council in the past. So 12.2 is the
Yeah,
the
but that's
base.
different though than,
I think we were at 11.4 was the base
oh, was it?
price.
Okay, somehow I thought we were
yeah.
at, okay, more than that, okay.
Yeah.
And then can you just explain, just so, because we've heard this before, but I know we have people in the gallery today, can you explain a little bit about the front end change, just kind of
Yep.
quickly, and the universal change rooms and why we have to do that?
So, yeah, Juanita's gonna pull up. So we will be moving to fully universal change rooms, so that is fully barrier-free. So the current change rooms that we have in the facility do not meet current code with respect to accessibility. And there isn't sufficient space within the facility to accommodate those requirements and be able to have a universal or family change room and then the 2 gendered washrooms. So we have elected to go with a 100% universal change room. So essentially what that means is everyone is changing in the change rooms. There are individual private change stalls for every individual. And that allows us to meet all of the barrier-free requirements. We also, from a staff perspective, they're quite supportive of this. And a lot of the challenges that we have faced, if we have things like bullying and theft and vandalism, those happen in the change rooms. So the way a universal change room operates is there's a lot more sight lines and openness to them. So it's not as though you're completely behind closed doors once you go in there. You're using those private change rooms to actually change. And then the office reconfiguration allows that for a proper staff lounge and lockers, and then the first aid area that will be able to be directly accessed from the deck. So if someone is injured or has some kind of medical incident, they don't have to be sort of touted through the viewing area to get into those spaces.
Okay, thanks, Director Jenkins, for that. Could I please have somebody make the first motion? Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I move that council approves the Aquatic Center Modernization Project for a total project budget of $14,908,465 to be funded through a combination of the facility reserve, the local government fiscal framework grant, and debenture. The project to be completed by Chandos Construction and Group 2 Architecture.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Director Jenkins? No, all right, all in favor? Okay, carried. We got there. What's that, Councillor Bates?
I just said it wasn't built yet, but we'll get there.
We will get there. Okay, I've lost my agenda. Here we go. All right, so we'll move on to 7.1, correspondence and information. Just have somebody make a motion to accept the correspondence as information. Councillor Hystad?
Your worship, I'll make a motion to accept the correspondence as information.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. Then we'll move into council reports, and we'll begin with Councillor Hystad today.
That's, yeah, my report's pretty limited, but that's my report before me, before all of you, before me. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I submitted my report and I don't have anything to add at this time.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. My report is submitted and I have nothing in addition.
Okay, exciting group today. I'm kind of the same way. Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Apologies to council for not getting a report in. Good thing I spoke out loud about it last week.
Thank you. And Councillor Bates?
I did mine ahead of time, so I submitted it. I think I have a solid waste management meeting this week, and I'll confirm that. I've written it in my calendar, but I haven't seen an agenda yet. From the Mountain View, a couple of key things. We did approve the drought management guide and had a successful audit approved. And one note of interest was Carstairs submitted a letter that outlined their increase in population, which is very significant. I believe it was from 2021 till 2024, going up from 4898 to 5313. So I think they've graduated into the realm of needing a police force. Having to pay for it, sorry. And I did, it wasn't here, but I did drop in on the lot draw, and it was quick and exciting.
All right, thank you, and I have a report in, nothing further to add. So we have open mic 9.0. Does anybody have anything they would like to say in open mic? Ron King. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. To Director Jenkins, was there any consideration while you were doing the pool evaluation or whatever of putting solar panels on the roof?
So we did look at that, the amount of structural reinforcement that would have to be done to the roof in order to accommodate the solar panels, made it not currently viable.
Now that steel has gone up. Even worse. No, thanks for that, Ron. And I will go to upcoming events. We'll just have a motion to accept the upcoming events as information, please. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I would move to accept upcoming events for information.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? And we'll have a motion to go in camera. Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Perfect.